Okay, this week, team, we have a guy by the name of Michael Dunlevy. I hope I pronounced that properly because he's going to learn how to pronounce my name beautifully. We've already coached him. Michael is based in Guatemala, of all places, and he's actually an Aussie by birth, has a very interesting background. I've been watching Michael lurking silently in the shadows and watching what he's saying in his philosophy, and he comes very well recommended. We've both been coached by some fellow people. And so this world is quite small. And I wanted to get Mike on the show because I think we're going to have a great conversation about his take on the philosophy of sales, a little bit on psychology, buyer's brain, all these things. And I know he's going to be up for it. So, Michael, I've really laid it on thick, and I hope you're up for this.
I'm here. I'm up for it. Thank you, St. John. That was a hell of an intro. So thank you very much. Good to be with you. We know quite a few of the same people. So that's normally a good sign.
I usually judge people by the company they keep.
Yep. Yeah. It's a fair modality to use.
What does the science say? They say that you're the product of the 5 people you spend most time with.
Yep.
True thing.
Yep.
It's a true thing.
Show me the people you spend time with and I'll show you your future.
Yeah, or show me the manager and I'll show you the team.
But there you go. Haven't heard that one, but that fits in with that concept.
100%. Now, this guy is really good. Team. He's really good. I've been watching him and I do my research on guests. So Michael, rather than me absolutely balls up the intro, why don't you just give the guys a little bit of rundown on how you are now, Mr. 47-year-old at time of recording.
Yeah.
And why are you in the game of sales? How did you end up where you are?
Why am I in the game of sales? That's a big question. I'm in the game of sales. Well, I came into the, let's go back a few steps, because how I came in and why I'm still in it now are 2 different answers. So how did I come into it? Like a lot of people, I was looking for work and I thought sales is always hiring. I'll probably be able to get a job in sales. So I went and got one. And that's how I came into it. You know, I just got back from 2 years in the UK, post-university, studied business at university, 2 years in the UK. Didn't do any jobs that were worth sharing here, but had a great time. Came back and I was in my early to mid-20s and I had a broken foot. That's what finished my European trip. I have a British passport. I was planning on staying in the UK and specifically in Spain and learning Spanish. Spanish summer 2003, I broke my foot falling downstairs. I wasn't drunk. It was a daytime. It was just clumsiness. And that ended I'm going to learn Spanish and live in Spain because I had to get an operation, which in the end I didn't have to get, but I got told I was going to. Went back to Australia, recovered 4 months until I was walking again, and then sort of had an epiphany. All my friends that had graduated with me 2 years earlier at university all had good jobs, and they were 2 years into their career. And here's this backpacker with a broken leg and not much money, not feeling great about life. I thought, I got to get a job. And
what about your AFL career? Didn't that kill that as well?
No, not enough talent there. Desire, yes, not enough talent. So,
sorry, I'm going to be such a pain throughout this, but we're going to have some fun here, listeners.
Yep.
Is I had this beautiful phrase by a guy that's he's an Olympic commentator. He's one of the Kiwis at triathlon. He goes, never confuse ambition with ability.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Please continue.
So I definitely didn't have the ability for AFL. I was not good enough. So I had, when I was at university, I worked in what we call a bottle shop. I'm not sure what the parlance is in NZ, but what we call a bottle shop, a store that sells liquor. And I worked there for 3 years while I was studying. So I got really familiar with the alcohol world. And Jack Daniels were hiring, and it looked like a pretty good job. Company car, training, not a bad salary. I thought I'll get this. And I got it. And on the very first morning of the very first day of my first day in a professional sales job, my then manager said to me, and this still underpins my selling philosophy today, 20 years later, they have all the answers. Your job is to ask the right questions. The Socratic method. Literally was the first thing I learned in selling. And it is still to this day the first thing I teach my students. They have all the answers. Your job is to ask the right questions. So that was how I came into selling. I sort of, was in it for sort of 10 years, came to Guatemala, started opening businesses here, had some success and some failures in that period of time. And COVID comes and my business has become non-tenable. They were public facing. They were tourism based. Tourism shut here for a year and a half, and I closed my businesses ultimately. And at that point in time, I had to, because Australia had closed its borders, as you may remember. Maybe NZ did too. I'm not sure.
Oh, pretty hard.
Yeah, so I
Pretty
couldn't
hard.
get out of Guatemala, and even if I could, I couldn't get into Australia. My businesses have all closed. My income has gone to zero overnight. I've got 2 kids, 3 and 1, and a wife at home, stay at home. And we were locked in our house, literally. For the first 2 months in Guatemala, we got literally locked in our houses. And it was pretty grim. And there was a moment, like this was my moment. This was my fork in the road moment. And I had to figure out a game plan to get us out of it. And I knew I could sell. I didn't know of this Zoom world. I didn't know of this remote selling world because I had no reason to go looking for it. But I thought there must be some Australian companies that will take an Australian and not care that he's overseas and do the worst sort of work ever, like cold calling on not Zoom, Skype. I didn't even know Zoom existed back then. Anyway, so I ended up doing that, and it was rough, but then I got on the other side of it and started working and connecting, and I started seeing this big world of remote selling and this whole ecosystem. And sort of 6 months passed, and it was lucrative and working, and that's the moment where I decided to commit to sales. So if I think back to Jack Daniels, I kind of fell into it. But this time in, sort of March, April 2020, I went back into it through necessity. And then sort of 3 or 4 months when I caught traction and things started working and opening up, and I started earning more than I was earning before COVID with my businesses, I'm like, you know what? I like selling and I like this world and I see infinite potential and I can do it on my terms and it's really lucrative and I can do it from Guatemala and no one cares. And before you knew it, I was all in. And when I went all in about 4 years ago now, or a little over 4 years ago now, I started, reading and investing in training and finding mentors and going in masterminds and doing things I'd never done before, which was spending my own money on like hardcore training and learning. And just fully committed, like total burn the boats. I had no plan B. And, fortunately for me, everything just changed. Everything opened up and I had phenomenal success selling on multiple accounts. And then I started posting content in Facebook, sort of documenting my story. I realized I was older than a lot of other sales guys in the space I was in. So I saw a space to, I guess, share with them thoughts and learnings that I would have liked to have known 20 years ago, that I thought they might want to know. And sort of on the back of that, people started asking for coaching. And then before you knew it, I had 10 or 15 one-on-one clients and hadn't even advertised. And then I thought, you know what, there's space to pivot into coaching here. So about 2 years ago, I pivoted into coaching and training. I still sell for one account. So I'm a sales trainer who's still in the game on sales calls. But I also help others, become a better version of themselves and share with them what's worked for me and what can potentially work for them as well. So that's the story, if that answers your question.
Very good. Great story. We'll get into more of that. Now, something that really caught my attention, my curiosity was, what is something you wish you knew 20 years ago when you started out that you know now in sales?
That's a great question. And the answer is there are many things, but I'm going to pick one because that's what you asked for. That you don't have to be the caricature, stereotypical salesperson that you probably think you have to become when you don't know much about sales. The pushy, the big talker, the slick, the teeth, the watch, the smile, the charisma. I mean, the smile and charisma can help, don't get me wrong, but you don't want to rely on that with nothing else underpinning it. Effectively the push method, where my job is to convince you, my job is to persuade you, my job is to change your mind, my job is to, have you acquiesce to my wishes, basically. Initially I thought, just through lack of not knowing there was an alternative, I thought that's what you had to be if you're a salesperson. And that's so non-congruent with how I want to be as a person. I have a visceral negative reaction to it, like that ick factor, that cringe factor, that feeling that, is this really how I'm conducting myself? Is this really how I'm going to work and live? And if someone I respected saw this, like, would I be proud of it? And the answer would be no. So it took me a period of time to realize you didn't have to be that person. And when I realized that and then made the changes and then got good at the changes, and the changes are just me being me. Now they're underpinned by certain things as well. But I've never had more success and never felt better about the work we do. So now there's no cringe, there's no ick factor. I don't push. I create space for them to come to me if they even want to come to me. And there are certain things you can do to make it more likely they will if there's something there. But I don't push my agenda onto them. I want them to feel they got choice, they have options. It's their journey, not mine. My job is to ask the right questions, and if I do that, the right answers will come. And when the right answers come, and I'll challenge their answers, we'll unpack it further, we'll see if it's real, because sometimes it isn't. And once all is revealed, well, then we'll both know what we need to do. And it may be that they ask for my help, and maybe they don't. And I'm at peace either way. Because if they don't ask for my help, as long as I can understand and articulate exactly why and how they didn't, and I know there's nothing more I could have done whilst being congruent with my values, then I'm at peace with it. Because you can't sell to everybody. And you shouldn't sell to everybody. And you shouldn't want to. But you have to know why you couldn't and didn't if you do walk away and it wasn't a sale. And that doesn't mean that you've put them through some sort of interrogation. You just had an honest conversation and understood exactly why they can't or shouldn't or don't or prefer not to ask for your help. And that's okay. On to the next one.
Yeah. You had a very important word you used there, which is conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to part that. We're going to get to that. And I think you know why I've chosen that particular word. So we'll unpack that shortly.
Mm-hmm.
I always ask all my students and some of the guys and girls that listen to this that I've been privileged to train is, what do you think the job of a sales professional is? What do you think their job is to do? What is their job? I'm really interested in your answer.
Yeah, at its most simplistic form, it's to help the prospect make the right and needed decision.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I knew this is the right guy. 100%. It's got nothing to do with selling, has it?
No. Look, you can't make somebody do something without force or without like hardcore manipulation, which I'm sure none of your listeners want to do.
We're not into that.
I don't do force and I don't do hardcore manipulation, but I will have an honest conversation with you and we'll explore everything. And on the back of that, we'll see where you're at and where you want to go and what makes sense. And if I get it right and there's a fit, there's a really high chance you'll ask for my help. Not a guarantee. There's no guarantees in sales. It's about likelihoods and probabilities. But it's likely and probable if where you're at and where you want to go marries up with what we do and you believe we can help you and you want us to help you, you don't have a better alternative, there's no friction to the point that you can't ask for our help, then you'll probably ask for it. And if you do, it'll be for the right reasons, as opposed to me having shoehorned you into some corner you don't want to be in. So that's how I see it. That's very much my philosophy. If you had asked me 20 years ago, I would have had a different answer, but that's the answer I have today.
I think it's the right answer. And why I say it, and I would disagree if I didn't, is listeners, if you heard about his intent, listen to his intent there. It's actually not about him at all. He's kind of detached himself. Again, detachment is a concept we'll get into as well. So we're going to talk about conversations and the power of conversations and questions. We're going to talk about detachment. We're going to talk about curiosity because I knew we're going to have a good conversation. But I like this concept of, when we talk about sales to people, you and I do a similar thing for a living. I'm in a specific vertical and rural. Is I said, the problem with sales is selling. So the more you try to sell, the less you will sell. And it's not something you do to something to people. And actually, it's more to do with serving than selling. And I think it all really comes from your intent because I can see you're a very, very genuine, authentic guy. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be here. But like you have said to the listeners here, hey, look, I don't like being incongruent with my values and who I am. And my job ultimately is to help a buyer make a really good, accurate, informed decision, whether it's us or someone else, right? And so that sits with your value, and that's where you call value-based selling. And I think that's where sales has just got so wrong that we've lost sight of the buyer. What are your thoughts?
No, I definitely agree. Look, it sounds counterintuitive when you say the more you focus on the sale, the less likely it is you'll actually get it. But in my lived experience, it's the truth. Sales is an outcome. It's a byproduct. And you can't force it without literally forcing it or hardcore manipulation. You can create a situation where it becomes likely and probable that if it all lines up and you get it right, they ask to buy from you. And that's great. That's what we should be doing, but for the right reasons. The right people buying for the right reasons at the right time. I'm playing the long game. Like when I recommitted to selling 4 years ago, like I don't see myself doing anything else in the foreseeable future because this meets my criteria. I like what I do. I feel good about what I do. It's really lucrative. I get to meet great people. I hadn't met you until today. You know, I get to travel the world with what I do. You know, my work is, in terms of tools of trade, it's my computer, it's my microphone, it's my camera, it's an internet connection. Put me anywhere in the world. I just got back from spending 3 months in Melbourne, where I'm originally from. We spent July, August, and September there as a family. I didn't miss a beat. Nothing changed as far as work. I just had to get up early. That was the only difference, because most of my work's in the US time zone. I just had to get up early, but nothing changed. You know, and I feel good about what I do. And I feel good about the version of myself I get to bring to the table. So I don't focus on making a sale because I don't believe it serves me or it serves the interaction. And I think it actually makes it less likely that I'll get a sale. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm ambitious. I want to make money. I want to make sales, but it's got to be for the right reasons with the right people at the right time. So I'm focused on the truth as a start point. The first thing I teach my students is they've got all the answers. Your job's to ask the right questions, which I said earlier. And then the next thing I teach them is we're here for the truth. And the truth might be they don't want to or shouldn't buy from you. And I'm at peace with that. Now, if I get that come up early, it doesn't mean I just roll over. You know, handled the right way, with permission, with nurturing, with context, you know, we'll explore it and we'll see if it's movable. And maybe it is without force, and maybe it isn't. But, you know, I'm here for the truth. I'm here to ask the right questions the right way at the right time. I'm here to challenge your answers for clarity and to see if it's real and movable and is appealing to their self-interest. Sometimes we can move it, sometimes we can't. And if on the back of that, we get to a point where they believe our help is right, they want our help, the terms make sense, they'll ask for my help. And it'll be a sale for the right reasons. I don't sell to them. I create a situation to see if they want to buy from me. And there's a fundamental difference. Like my clothesline is, you know, not Visa or MasterCard. There's no assumptive sale with my clothesline. It's, what would you like to do?
Yeah.
You have to ask to buy from me. I won't close you any other way. You have to ask to buy from me.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's cognitive ownership in that as well. There's a few things going on there. Like the first thing in the psych world is reactions theory. So we react when we're controlled. No one really liked being locked down. I'm sure it was lovely to spend time with your lovely wife and your young children for 2 months in Guatemala, but I'm not sure people like being locked down. People don't like things being done to them. I certainly know for farmers, everyone's trying to tell them how to do what they do and how they do it. So a salesperson trying to control the sale, it won't work. It will blow up in your face. And I like what you're saying about you feel good about what you do, because there's this myth, isn't there, Michael, where people say sales is a yucky, sleazy, fast, hand-rubbing, used car salesman, all those negative connotations. It's actually very easy to be different from anyone else. You be the complete opposite of what they are.
Yeah, 100%. Look, the caricature is real. And, you know, I'm not going to say I've never been part of the caricature in earlier sales versions of myself when I didn't know better and thought it was appropriate and applicable, lessons learned. It's been a long time, but there has been a version of me like that in the past. So I recognize that very strongly. But here's the thing. Because that's the caricature of salespeople, which has a lot of truth in it, it creates a situation where, you know, salespeople are some of the least respected professionals out there. I mean, think of two, and I hope this doesn't offend any of your listeners, but think of two of the throwaway lines we have for occupations that invoke immediate, visceral, negative reactions. Snake oil salesman, used car salesman. You know, that's just two examples, but we have a real clear image and clear feeling of where that takes us. Like, he's as trustworthy as a used car salesman, or he's as he's as manipulative as a snake oil salesman, or, you know, words to that effect. And because that's the positioning that a lot of us have to carry into a start point interaction, you know, that can mean low status, low levels of respect. And on the back of that, that gives permission to treat us like crap, to lie to us, to mislead us, to waste our time, to not value our input, you know, all those things. So if you're able to think and act and project different energy and create and enforce different boundaries and do it well whilst appealing the prospect's self-interest, all of a sudden the separation you can have from your competition is just phenomenal.
Night and day. I love how this, I think where you and I are on common ground is around kind of restoring the respect that sales as a profession, and I'm underlying that as a profession, deserves, but that's earned. You know, it's not entitled, and I think it's go on.
That's a great point you make. Like, I would almost say my meta vision for what I do like there's visions at individual level, like to provide for my family and fulfill my ambition. There's all that sort of stuff. But if I were to go meta for a moment, and I don't think I've publicly shared this, my meta ambition is to bring a respectability and decency to salesmanship, for want of a better word.
Beautiful mission.
Which is
what a beautiful mission.
Yeah, which why? Because life's too short to not be doing work that meets that criteria. And here's
life's too short to be a shitty salesperson.
Well, that's true. But here's the reason why sales, when done right, has to command respect. Now, the caveat is when done right. Because if you think of any organization, any business, you don't have revenue, you're toast. Who's at the front line of revenue? Us. Now, there's other aspects too, like marketing and PR and whatnot, and product. But we are a vital cog in revenue generation. No business exists without salespeople. Correct. To some degree. Salesmanship to some degree. So that's number one. So from a company perspective, we are essential. And if we weren't, they would have replaced us because most of them don't like us because of the way we conduct ourselves, and because most of us are seen as an expense or a cost or a liability over an asset. And on the flip side, the biggest value you can provide to a prospect, and when you do this and do this well, you provide tremendous value to them, which causes respect on the back end of that, is help them have powerful realizations and moments of clarity that they couldn't on their own. And on the back of said realizations and clarity, everything can change for them. And you're the one that got them there via your questions and the way you asked them and how you made them feel. And the credibility and trust and respect that comes on the back of that is phenomenal.
Did you hear that, guys? I just had to write that down because that's like a money shot there. Is like powerful realizations and clarifications they wouldn't understand on their own.
Yep.
And I think that's the role of a really, really good sales professional, because for me, what gives me meaning in my world is often the world that we live in is mired, I think that's the right word, or tarnished with slippery snake oil salesmen. And, what are you going to sell me now? Sell me something I don't need, et cetera, et cetera. If you can work out and qualify and clarify what someone wants, that is not manipulation. That is helping. And I think, often we're given the bucket of, hey, you're just selling stuff that people don't want and everything else, and we're all tied by the same brush. I think it's all about how you show up. I think it's about your intent. I think it's about your behavior, your values, all the things that we're going to get into. And what you've been talking about here is like, what you just said is incredibly powerful, is if I can help you get to a different place or state, which I know we'll get into as well, and you can realize that, and I've been a conveyor or a facilitator of that, then naturally you might have a higher propensity to reward me with that journey. Because I think our job, the really funny thing is a lot of the guys I talk, they're predominantly guys that I teach, but guys and girls, they have an ego trap and they go, I don't want to be a salesperson. I want to be a trusted advisor. And I go, interesting. Now, Michael, play with me as I go.
Yeah. Well, I think that ties into the negative caricature of what a salesperson is. I mean, I've done a bit of work recently with creative types and and business owners who are from, say, product backgrounds or engineering backgrounds or creative backgrounds. And, this is a broad stroke, I'm going to say, but there's a feeling that sales is beneath them from their point of view.
Oh, hallelujah. We have the same veterinarians and agronomists. I mean, you don't go to veterinary school for 7 years to sell.
That's right. It's beneath them.
It's to sell hours and things and products.
Because I think there's two things in play. I think firstly, there's a often misguided belief that because they're so amazing at what they do, that the product or service should sell itself. And often it doesn't. Not because they're not good at what they do, just because...
We wouldn't need salespeople.
That's right. Just because there are dots that are not connecting, which is where we come in, or they come in if they know how to do what we do. And secondly, I think they carry the negative caricature that we talked about earlier. And who wants to be that guy? That's not congruent with their identity. Identity is a powerful thing. Something I talk about all the time, both to my trainers and also on sales calls. I always appeal to identity. So put those two things together and they're just like, too hard, don't want to go there. So yeah, that's in play.
Yeah. So I think, you talked around the role that we have to play and restoring the respectability, the mission you're on. And I applaud you on that, because I'd share in that in my little vertical and world that I work in. Now, I want to talk about, we've been talking a lot about identity here and how we are received and perceived. I think there's, again, you use the word broad brush, I say generalization, is that sometimes I think salespeople are so self-obsessed and self-orientated They forget there's a person or a human being in front of them
Yep.
because they are so priority and urgency is to sell something, but that might not be the same implied priority and urgency in the prospect.
Sure.
And I think if they could get more curious and interested in their prospect and less interested in themselves, they'd make more sales.
Well,
tell me what you think.
Sure. Well, people buy for their reasons, not for yours. And how does it appeal to my self-interest if you turn up in a suit with a flash smile and it's all about you? Like, how does that appeal to my self-interest? And why would I part with my money my self-interest is not appealed to?
Why have we made sales so complicated?
It's not. It really isn't.
Isn't it? Like, I smack my head here going, why are you trying to do things to a prospect that only alienates and puts them further and further in distance? Like, we should be inviting them in, pulling them in, and we're going to talk about questions as an invitation in, and we'll understand that. But like we push them away, we repel them by our behaviour.
Self-interest is undefeated. Appeal to somebody's self-interest, and you have them in the palm of your hands. I mean, when's the last time, outside of extraordinary circumstances, or it simply wasn't possible, but outside of things like that, when's the last time you didn't do something that appealed to your self-interest?
Oh, well, it has to do with my survival mechanism. I have to do things in my self-interest because my amygdala tells me to.
Yeah. Like, work with the prospect, not against it. When you make it all about you and not about them at all, I mean, how does it appeal to their self-interest? And as a result of that, how and why would they part with their money and ask for your help? Like, what possible reason would they have to do that?
100%. Now, you and James, your co-colleague, James, I've been listening to a couple of your podcasts because I do a little bit of research for guys get on. I had a coach, Carrie. She was on the show a few weeks ago, and she is a pocket rocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her this question. I'd be really interested in your answer. I asked her the same question. Where do you think self-awareness comes from? Because I know you are super shit hot on it in terms of it being a very fundamental requirement of a sales professional be self-aware. Where does self-awareness come from? Maybe your own journey, you could share a little bit of that.
So it's an easy question to answer. It's the same answer I just gave 30 seconds ago. Self-interest. It appeals to my self-interest. There's more I can do. There's better things I can do. I can get to better places if I have a degree of self-awareness. If I can't read the room and have some comprehension of how my energy is being perceived, or the words I'm saying are landing, or all those sorts of things, that's not going to increase the chances that my self-interest is appealed to. I said before, self-interest is undefeated.
Well said. Well said. Love it. Love it. What a great answer. Now,
what was her answer, by the way? Just as a means of contrast.
Yeah, good. I love how curious you are. Carrie's answer was you actually have to take the time to self-reflect.
Yep.
To self-coach.
Yes.
So you become more self-aware.
Got it. So I would go one step further and go, why would you want to do that? And it's going to get us back to self-interest.
Oh, I knew he was good. That's good. It's so good.
Undefeated. Now, I'm telling you, undefeated. Self-interest.
Self-interest is undefeated. That will be the title of the podcast.
I might write a book and call it that.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Before I get too excited, because this is going to be interesting where we go now, is why is it, do you think, now you and I both train sales teams or salespeople, and their body language, you go in the room, virtual or in person, and you get the kind of crossed arms, kind of, who's this idiot? He's going to teach you. And there's this whole sort of reluctance and resistance. Now, a lot of it's got to do with identity, because you and I are not stupid, and we can read rooms and body language and all those kind of things, and we've been there, hundreds of times before. Why is it? I think I know the answer, but I'm interested in yours more. Why is it that people pretend to be much better at sales or think they know everything when they possibly don't?
Probably self-interest again, but specifically, I'd say more often than not, it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. And what are they defending?
Well, probably the ego and the identity, because incompetence or lack in some degree, most likely lack, and it could be lack of many things, but lack of something is probably underpinning, their being at that moment or in the context of this interaction. And it can be painful or embarrassing or humiliating, all negative emotions, to have them come out and to have others become aware of and recognize that that's
ridicule.
That's who they are. The mask comes off, because we're all hiding things. Like we all got masks on to some degree.
Michael, I'm going to interject a lot because there's so much I agree with. This is my style. I don't have Tourette's. It's just there's so much you're saying that makes sense. Do you know what the word persona means in Latin?
Mask.
Yes.
But I only learned that the other day.
Well, there you go.
I learned that literally
we all wear
Sunday.
masks.
Today's Tuesday. 2 days ago I learned that. I'm reading a book on philosophy, like the world's philosophies. It's really just a sort of journey through all of the world's philosophies. It doesn't go deep. It's like 4 or 5 pages one, historically. And I read that 3 days ago.
Yeah, we all wear different hats or different masks.
Of course we do.
Depending on the situation, it's contextual or situational. So Michael's answered it so well, and he's very articulate, much better than me, is that usually we're defending something, or a mask is there to protect or conceal or something. And often sometimes it's self-worth or role and rank, or being sensitive to being exposed for our deficiencies. And, you know, as we know by humans, we're obsessed by status.
Especially men.
Especially men and caveman times, because we were the hunter-gatherer. And then we would obviously get, you know where the phrase up the food chain comes from. That's like higher status, more food, more resources, more assets.
I didn't know that, but that makes total sense.
That's the biological caveman brain, you see. So, you know, we've got to understand humans at a basic level. This is why you say self-interest is undefeated.
Can I just interject one thing on status? I mean, if you go back to, like, if we want to go like full caveman, which seems like we're going, which is great. I love going back to caveman style psychology. It's our reproductive strategy. The male reproductive strategy is based on status. Women's is based on safety.
Now here we go. We're going to jam hard here. Have you read a book by Geoffrey Miller? It's called Spent.
I used to listen to his podcast, but I haven't read his book.
Right.
I'm familiar with his work.
So just for the listeners, because this has prompted me, he talks about conspicuous fitness signals, which is basically psychology ramble for basically peacock. It's why people drive G-Wagons or Hummers or big European cars, because they're trying to show their fitness signals to the opposite sex to improve their genetic lineage so they survive as a species. And that's called evolutionary psychology. And he's an evolutionary psychologist.
That's right.
And so what Michael's talking about there is exactly this. It's like we are always sending signals, and they're status signals, and men particularly are very sensitive to any loss, because loss aversion is a thing, like any role or rank or loss in status, significance, or social standing.
That's right.
And they're very, very sensitive to that, right? So if I was put in your room and I belittle you or call you out and just check for understanding, do you actually have the competencies and capabilities you are projecting, and you don't, I'm going to be your foe. I will not be your friend.
That's right.
Because I'm a threat response. I'm a fear and threat response to your survival.
Exactly. Yep.
That's caveman brain.
Yeah, it is. But it translates into today. Like, if you look at sort of most decisions we make, if you just keep deducting and deducting and deducting, you get back to status and security for women. Status for men, security for women. You got to keep deducting. Sometimes there's like 20 layers you got to like peel back, and that's because, and you keep doing that. You know,
the 5 whys.
He bought the Rolex. Okay, why? Because he liked it. Okay, he liked it because other people appreciate it too. And why does he want other people to appreciate it? Well, because you keep doing it, you'll eventually get back there.
All roads lead to that. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, we talked about identity.
Yes.
There's so much we want to talk about. Conversations.
Yes.
Now, I think you used the word quest, and people forget that a lot of the answers are hidden in the words. So a question is a quest. To me, a question is a quest to qualify.
I don't think I used that word, but I'm interested to see where you're going. Maybe I did, but I didn't notice it. But I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
Okay, cool. No, I love it, because I love it when guests interact like this. It's brilliant, because it's enriching. Is Latin derivative of the word question is core, which is to seek, to strive, to obtain.
Okay.
And what you're doing is, you said you're seeking the truth.
Yes.
Yep. You talked about 2 things, and one of them was getting to the truth. You only get to the truth if you ask the right question.
That's right. Which is back to they have all the answers. Your job's to ask the right questions.
Socratic.
That's right.
Socratic question. So you're a lovely man. How lucky were you on your first day?
Unbelievable.
To have a manager who could teach you that.
I can't believe how fortunate I was. Because that set the scene, and that's congruent with my personality as well. That set the scene for everything that came after it. I'm so fortunate to have learnt that. And it's unbelievable that literally the first thing I was taught is still the first thing I teach my students 20 years later. All the exposure I've had since then. It's the only thing I teach from that time at Jack Daniels. I had a great time there, but that's the only thing I teach from that period of time. But it just transcends. And it makes sales so easy as well, in the sense that you don't have to get into your head too much. You know, like, I just distill it down to this. It's just an honest conversation between 2 adults. One's probably got a problem, one may have a solution. you explore it together, and then what needs to happen happens on the back of it. Like when you look at it through that lens, all pressure goes away. At no stage should I say that you got to sell to them, you got to convince them, you got to like extract every dollar you can. Like I didn't go near any of that.
You see how easy that was for Michael? You know, you're watching him on video here or you're listening to him on audio. It's really simple when you strike it back. It's got nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with them. Find out what they want. And if you can help them solve that problem, then see if you can help them.
Yep.
And it takes all that pressure away because it's never about us. It's so obvious, but we get in our own ways, don't we?
Absolutely. And a lot of the time it's not our fault. You know, we don't know better. We don't know a different way. Now, if your listeners are listening to you a lot, they should not have that excuse. But there was a past version of me and probably a past version of you where we didn't know better. We thought we had to act and carry on a certain way.
Too hard.
Yeah.
And we take that avatar and instead of appealing, it repelled.
That's right. Yep.
You know, and so these questions, let's talk about the question, the conversation, because time's running away on us.
Sure.
But, you know, we've got time. But what I really like about sales is if it feels or sounds like a sales conversation, you're doing it completely wrong.
The worst compliment in parentheses you can get is, gee, you're really good at sales. If that comes up, it's masked as a compliment. It's honestly, like, it's the biggest insult ever, but it's masked as a compliment. And the inexperienced salesperson, you know, puffs out their chest. Oh, this person's recognized I'm really good at sales. You never sell to that person. They never buy from you.
No, it's a backhanded compliment.
Yep.
And it's actually a signal that they're sending that they're feeling they're being sold to. It's a bit like when you say, hey, I'm not here to sell you anything.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you can say because your subconscious picks on the fear or threat response of loss aversion of sales and the connotation we have with sales and salespeople. Because who feels safe in the company of salespeople?
No. Why would you? We collectively have earned the right to not have others feel safe around us, which is why when you get really good and you do your version of what you and I do, and you do it well and it's congruent with your personality and it's true, you know, it's not some fake bait and switch play, it's true. The separation you can have from your competition is phenomenal. I said it earlier, I'll say it again, because self-interest, there's the carrot, guys. It will appeal to your self-interest to get really good at doing this version of selling, both from how you feel and also how effective it is, and how you make other people feel as well. Now,
my friend, how have you trained yourself? I've struggled with this, but I'm getting there. But I'm a work in progress, like everyone. How have you trained yourself to detach yourself from the outcome of sales as a sales professional who's still active?
Yep. So here's the thing. Do I want to sell to every person? Like when I started interaction with a new prospect, you know, on some level, do I want to sell to them and cash the commission check and, you know, get the glory? Of course I do. That feeling doesn't go away, but it's what you do with that feeling. You know, I recognize that feeling doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the interaction. It doesn't serve the prospect. So I have to suppress it. You know, Mike Tyson talks about, you know, cowards and boxers like him feeling the same thing. So the feeling is the same. It's how you respond to it. You know, one goes into fight mode, the other goes into flight mode. So I want to sell to everybody on some level, but I have to suppress that feeling because I know it will not serve me. It'll change my energy. It'll change the types of questions I ask. It'll change how I respond to their answers. And I know that all of those changes will not appeal to my self-interest, nor appeal to theirs, and therefore makes it less likely that I'll actually get a good result from this. A good result being the truth, and if all stars align, they ask to buy from me. So I just simply have to suppress the feeling. And it's just practice, but it's underpinned by self-interest. I have a deep appreciation and awareness that it doesn't appeal to my self-interest to do it the other way. So that it all comes back to self-interest. I could repeat myself.
I love it.
Which is you get it.
Podcast self-interest. I think I've got it. Hey, tell me why traditionally is sales training so obsessed, and what's so wrong with the obsession of closing? Can I just? Sorry to interject. Can I just add one more point? Can I just add one more point? You know, I did a post yesterday for anyone that follows my content, a post on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I talked about Buddhism and how attachment is, you know, the root of unhappiness or worse to that effect. There's nothing that will cause you more unhappiness in selling than having hardcore attachment. I mean, that will lead you to behave in a subpar way, and it will lead you to believe that you can sell to everybody all of the time, and you'll be in endless follow-up land and endless, you know, trying to close everyone with a heartbeat, and
it's just not going to take you to a good place. It's not an effective way of operating, and it won't lead to self-preservation. Like, you'll burn out, or you'll end up hating sales, or you'll perform so poorly that they'll boot you off the team. So again, back to the famous words. So I just wanted to get that in there. Like, to me, attachment in selling leads to unhappiness and leads to less selling.
I think attachment creates sales suffering for the seller.
Yep.
And I think, you have to train yourself to go, what is my role?
Yes.
What is my purpose? My purpose is to make sure that person in front of me makes a really good decision. It might not be me.
Yep.
But I need to give them the right information and facilitate so they've got all the information so they can qualify and clarify, because they're terrified of making a bad decision.
Yep.
And if we manipulate and we coerce and we pressurize and we pitch and we close, I think it's a man in the mirror moment. I just don't feel very good about myself.
100%. And like, if you had a loved one, let's say your mother or someone, older than you that you love and trust and all those things, and let's say that she wanted to get on a sales call, and option A was a guy or a lady who legitimately was focused on the truth and helping them make the right decision for the right reasons, and option B was a guy in a flash suit with the teeth, with a watch, whose ambition was to sell to that person no matter what. I mean, I know it's an obvious answer, but who would you rather put your mother on the phone with?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. So we talked about conversation. We talked about detachment. I know we're doing a flyby real quick because I knew time would jump on us.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about identity as well.
Yes.
I would say, what do you feel? Some of the best questions. Let's give the listeners a few gifts here, because you and I have got a few things that we could probably teach, and they're going, this all makes sense. Give me some stuff. Give me some practical stuff. So when you have a conversation with someone, give me, because you'll have like hundreds, and I would as well. Give me one of your best qualification questions.
Sure. Obviously, it depends who I'm speaking to and where they're at in their journey, and is it a towards sale or an away from sale? Your audience knows the difference between towards and away sales.
No,
a lot of salespeople don't. A lot of salespeople don't.
Please.
And it's in 0 to 1, 1 to 100. Like, these categorizations are important. Like, it might sound like buzzwords, but they're very important and they change everything. So, towards, we'll start with away. Away sales are typically away from pain. Away from present state. The core driver where the sale is going to be made is on them exiting their current state. My house is on fire. Get me out of this house. I'm burning. Get me out of this house. That's an away from sale. Like, I want to get in the pool and cool off and put some nice clothes on afterwards, but the sale is made on getting them out of the burning house before their skin melts. That's an away from sale. So if you're selling fitness, for example, to someone who's really, really overweight, hates how they feel, hates how they look, hates how people look at them and treat them, that's an away from sale. They want that state to end. Then they can create a new one, but the sale is made on them believing they can exit this painful state they're in right now. Towards is the opposite. Towards is they want more of something, or they want to continue on a line they're already on. So, for example, I'm in a mastermind, and I'm not in a mastermind, James Kemp's mastermind, who's a mutual friend of ours, who's great at marketing and online business architecture and other things. It's not that I don't know how to do those things and feel I'm a complete loser and my house is on fire in those areas. I just recognize he's better than I am at those things, and those things I don't. And I want to continue the trajectory I'm on, but accelerate it and go to higher heights. I believe it's more likely I can do that with a guy like him. That's a towards sale. I want more of what I'm doing, but to a higher level and better. That's a towards sale. 0 to 1 is, binary code. You're not, and now you are. 1 to 100 is you already are, but now you want to move through the gears and get up to 100. You need to, if you don't know this language, I won't go more into it now. Maybe you can in your training session, but it's important you can make those distinctions, because the conversation is very different. You won't speak their language if you are speaking towards language to an away person, and vice versa. And therefore,
that's such good. I just want to stop there, because I just want to let people digest that. That is such good training you're providing there, Michael, because I think Kempy, or James Kemp, as he's known formally, he has sort of, I think, coached into you and I this old idea of present pain versus latent pain.
Yep.
And I think you've done it even better, and you're probably doing yourself a disservice, and because you're such a humble fella. But the away from is like a bleeding neck problem, whereas the towards is your, as I say, it's not less binary. It's 0 to 100, where you're like, hey, I'm going okay, but I want to get better, and I want to get to the next level, and I want to reach my potential. So I think it's really good that we just stop and take stock of literally what you just said, so that really, really lands for people. Because if you're on the wrong state, you're going to miss them.
100%. Like it's basically there's five categories you can put people into. Number one is avoidance of present pain. Stop this pain in my neck.
Bleeding neck problem. Yeah.
Future pain, avoidance of future pain. My neck's fine now, but I know if I don't change now in 6 months, it's going to fall off. So let's fix it now so I don't lose my neck in 6 months. So there's two states there, present and future. Both are pain, both are away. Towards an ambition is the same. I want to be the king of the castle today. I want to be the king of the castle in 6 months. So present and future. And the fifth one is curiosity, which is the lowest. That's a small percentage. Some people genuinely buy out of curiosity. They got more time and more money than they know what to do with, and let's just do something for fun. That's a very small percentage.
Very rare.
Yeah, 99% of your people will be in the first four categories I said earlier. But it's important you understand it, and you can tell by the language they use. You can tell by the solutions you offer as well. But if they're using negative language like "I'm sick of," "I'm tired of," "I can't keep," that's almost certainly an away from sale.
Good.
So that's an easy way to identify it.
So let's talk around and away from sale. I've got a present pain.
Yep.
I'm not making enough sales. Let's just keep it
Yep.
simple in our realm, in our context that we are familiar with in our own sandpit. Hey, Michael, I'm not making enough sales. I'd love to understand better how you might be able to help me.
Sure. Happy to talk about how we help people who want to make more sales. Before we get into the details, can I ask a couple of questions about where you're at and where you want to go and what's going on?
I'd love you to do that.
Great. So when you say you're not making enough sales, what do you mean by that? What does that mean in your...
Guys, you see what he's doing there? He's drilling for specificity and he's looking for qualification. Very, very good. So he didn't take it on face value and he didn't just go... Because the thing is, Michael's not going to rush. I can almost hear you having... Well, I've kind of been watching you for a while, Michael. You take your time. You do not rush for a sales process. He stops, he gets curious, and he goes deeper. And I said, look, I'm not making sales. And then what he's trying to do is he's trying to qualify how big a problem is that for me. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, I want to even before we get into the size of the problem, I want to confirm the problem actually exists. So I'll focus on the what as a start point, what's going on. Because if the problem that you have doesn't exist, well, there's no conversation. And if the problem you have doesn't align with the help that we give, there's no conversation. So I need to know as a start point, whatever's going on in your world is relevant to where we can maybe help. Once we get the what, then we can talk about, impact. Does it matter? Because status quo is always our biggest enemy. Keep doing the same thing, push it out for another day. Pray it goes away. Kick the can down the road. Sure. Yeah. So once I got you on the what, now I'm going to move over to impact. I'm going to make you convince me that it matters to you and that it's matters enough to actually explore fixing.
Right. Listeners, we're jumping into something that's just really interesting if you're paying attention or you're taking notes if you're not driving. What Michael's doing, or what I think he's doing, is he's now framing the conversation. He knows where he wants the conversation to go. So there's a bit of choreography here. And what he's going to do now, he's talked about the what, and he's sort of qualified that I do have a problem and it's sufficient for us to have another conversation. And now he's going to move to a question around impact and implication, aren't you? What kind of question would you ask them?
Yeah, so let's pick up the role play again. So what was my question to you? It was when you say you're not making enough sales, what's going on there? What does it mean to a guy?
We haven't made sales. We're an agri-tech business. We haven't made sales for 3 months, and my board of directors are raining fire on us. And if we don't turn this around, I think we're going to run out of runway, run out of cash, and we will have to close the business.
Right. So there's a bit going on there. Let's start with the last part. Close the business, runway. How much time you got until that?
I think
if nothing changes.
Good. I think we've got about enough cash for 6 months.
6 months,
and then if we don't get more clients on board, we don't get the sales team selling, then we're gonna have to close shop. Like we're just gonna put our tail between the legs.
Your best guess as to why you haven't solved this 3 months? I mean, what's typically the time that passes without you selling? Is it days, weeks, minutes? Like what's it normally look?
Yeah. Look, we've just hit a really bad patch. Things have got really, really tight. Input costs have gone up. Interest rates have gone up. We've had drought. We've had floods, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really affected things. So we've taken a real dip. We plateaued and then we've really stayed in this funk.
Right.
Normally, and so listeners, we're going to jump out of role play here.
Yep.
What Michael's done here is he's really trying to understand what's going on for me.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, because your answers might come now, and it might not be a sales training issue. It might be a macroeconomics issue or a government policy issue. Just to sort of freestyle here.
Yeah.
And
And
if that really is what it is, and we explore it from
Mhm.
multiple angles, that really is what it is, then I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say, listen, based on what you've told me, Sinjin, and you're going to tell me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you've got a sales issue. It sounds like you've got a macroeconomic policy issue or a legislation issue or a whatever issue or a climatic issue. So unless you're seeing something I'm not, I don't see where we fit in. Or what are your thoughts?
Oh, I see. He's good. See, this is what he does. He's been completely non-assumptive here, and he's stayed in intent. He's stayed in his intent. He wants to help me understand. If he can help me, he'll help me. But if it's something he can't help me, he's going to be honest and he's going to be transparent. He can't see that's not a factor that he can control.
As of right now.
Really like,
but I always leave the door open. I always leave the door open. So you heard me say, unless you're seeing something I don't see, like I always leave the door open for you to go, yeah, Michael, macroeconomics sucks. However, and then after however comes the truth. However,
have I got that wrong? Have I got that wrong, or I got that
things
right?
Like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be completely off record. What do you think? So you're checking back in, and you're basically closing the loop on them again.
Exactly.
Very good. Now I want to just close out on a couple of things. A couple more questions. That was really good. Michael, thank you for doing that.
No worries.
I knew you'd be up there. Most salespeople are so afraid of losing the sale, and I think I know the answer again. Why are so many people desperate for the deal, needy in their negotiation, and how do they put themselves in a position of power? I really hope you've got the right answer. No pressure.
So what's the actual specific question there? Because you covered a bit of terrain with the lead-up. What's the specific question?
Clarity. So the intent of my question is, there are listeners going, well, that's all right for Sinjin and Michael. They're really good. They've been doing this for ages, and they can walk away from deals. But I've got to put food on the table, and I've got to make sales, and I can't say it's macro. And we were just using examples there. But they might go, well, I got to make some sales. I've got to make some bloody sales here. They can't be like you and I. Now, why can you and I be like you and I? Not because we're Superman. We're not Supermen here. Why is it that we are willing to walk away if we know we can't sell to that person? What's the missing link here for a person that might be thinking that and then saying, so those guys can walk away from deals and dismiss them or disqualify them?
The key words you said then to my ears were when you know you can't sell to them or words to that effect. So if you've realized that you know you can't sell to them, and that's based on the fact that you've done your job well, you've asked the right questions the right way at the right time, you challenged your answers, you've got clarity, you've come at it from multiple angles. If you've done a poor job, that's a different conversation. But if you've done a great job with all that you could control, and the conclusion you've come to after multiple attempts is, I can't sell to this person, well, what are your options right now?
Or don't sell to them. I always say, no stone unturned.
But I mean, sorry to cut you off, if you legitimately have come to that conclusion, which means you've uncovered all those stones, and you've come to the conclusion, I can't sell to this person
the
today.
Answer's easy.
You have two options. Walk away with dignity, leave the door open for when things change, and the relationship's still in a good place, and they'll come back to you even when things change because you're a safe and valuable person to speak to. Or get the blunt instrument out and try and batter them into submission. And you will get some. You will get 1 in 50 or whatever it is as that start point. What about the 49 you didn't get?
I love it. Conversion rates. Hey, we're getting a 10% conversion rate. Well, what about the other 90%?
Yeah, and do you really want to have 50 battering conversations to get one sale and burn the other 49 relationships and hate who you see?
I want to give an answer to the team because I'm hurrying and because I've got another.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. So go.
So this is the answer. If we're needy in our negotiations, we're desperate deal, it's because we don't have enough prospects and we're not having enough conversations.
Yep.
So for me, I think I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I just feel that otherwise we're just putting too much pressure on that sale, and then we have to divert to that yucky thing. I'm going to have to sell it because I need to make the sale. But if you have enough conversations and you have enough opportunities, you don't need to make every sale. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And playing the long game as well. I mean, depending on what you're selling, you may deal with this person multiple times over the next couple of years. Do you really want to risk it all for today?
So good. Absolutely. I always feel it's really important to be someone's plan B if their plan A ever happens to let them down.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I haven't heard that before, but I like that. Yep.
I thought I'd give you something. I had to give you
You,
something.
you give me lots.
French,
You give me lots of compliments. I'll give you that
greedy.
much. So
Greedy. I'm greedy.
you've appealed to my self-interest by making me feel good by giving me lots of compliments.
Oh, you're good. Now, my friend, last one. 8 months ago,
Yes.
you popped up on. I've been following this fella. We're far too small. We won't be on his radar. Jeremy Minor.
Oh, Jeremy Minor. Yes, that was Christmas last year. That was just before Christmas.
Yeah.
Is that cool? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very youthful. You're looking very youthful there.
Oh,
and
God.
so
Is that a polite way of saying I've aged terribly in the last 8 months?
you just look young on it. I don't know what it is, but maybe I don't know. But maybe terrible. You know, I mean that you still look very youthful, I might say.
See how I got you to dance for me and justify and explain that?
Yeah,
That
I
was
dance
by
like a bear. I dance like a bear,
Yeah.
didn't I? So, Jeremy, I've been watching him. He's dominating my algorithm at the moment.
Mhm.
He's very, very hot
Mm.
on intonation
Yes.
and pacing.
Tonality. He loves his tonality.
Yeah.
Unapologetically. Like he talks about it all the time.
So you talk to him, and how do you get on his show, and how do you get a radar, and how was he? What was he like? Is he the real deal? Or is he the shiny watchy car guy?
Oh, that's a big question. Do you
Well, I know.
do you still have to go now? Like we're on deadline time for you.
No, we can go for a
I
couple
can
minutes.
answer
A couple
this.
minutes.
Okay. So there's a few questions in that. So how is he? Look, he was very pleasant. We had 2 interactions. Let me go back a step. How did this happen? So I post every day on Facebook. Just started on LinkedIn like this week. But in the world I'm in, it's mostly Facebook centric. So Facebook's been the right medium for me.
I'm going to give you some LinkedIn love, Michael. Don't worry. If you're new,
Yep.
I'm going to put my arms around you and give you lots of love.
Okay,
Carry
thank
on.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I there was a particular cold calling approach that he was using. I didn't know it was him. And somebody did a post and they talked about that as an opening, and I critiqued it in a non sort of throw them under the bus and humiliate them sort of way. I talked about why I didn't think it was a good approach. I didn't know it was his. And I gave a alternative approach, based on...
Oh, did you do the video of you watching him?
No, it wasn't video based. It was all text based. Anyway, so
That would have been
somebody forwarded that to him, and I didn't know it was Jeremy. We'd never interacted before. I knew who he was, but we'd never interacted. And he says it was his assistant. His assistant ended up on... It's still on my Facebook. All this is still on my Facebook. It hasn't been deleted. His assistant turned up on my wall and, as Jeremy, representing Jeremy, like first person as if it were Jeremy. And just a lot of chest beating, don't you know who I am, like all that sort of stuff. And I responded, I didn't take the bait. I responded by thanking him for coming in and asking some questions. And anyway, the real Jeremy then turned up, and it sort of went back and forth a little bit. I took the high ground the whole way, and in the end, he said, "Come on the show, we'll have a chat." So that was the genesis of the background in terms of how we came to interact. We had a non-publicized meeting, an hour call, meet and greet, and then about 5 minutes in, he goes, "I want you on the show tomorrow. We'll record it live." And we did it. And what you see is what you get. Look, it was very different to... He was nice in the interactions with me. I don't have a bad word to say about his interactions with me. It was very different in that... I don't know if you've seen that episode or not, but I didn't speak that much. I didn't get a lot of leeway to speak that much. You've given me a lot of leeway to expand on my thoughts and, go deep and granular and a bit of back and forth. That wasn't as much the case on that show, but that's his show.
Well, you're my guest.
Yeah,
because that's self-interest, right?
Well, there you go. So I think I would have liked to have spoken a little bit more in an ideal world, but that's okay. It's fine.
I just wanted to tip you on that. What I want to tip you on is it's really important, I think, in the sales community that we're constructive. There's no hate.
No, not at all.
And what I like the way is you are a very decent fella. You're saying, hey, I would approach it slightly different. And it's the same way Jeremy does it too. He's going to give his constructive. And the good thing is it's not a rant. You're providing rationale.
That's right.
And you're saying, this is what I do and I do. Because it's all contextual. It's all situational. It's also based on our socialization, way we've been brought up, who we are, the persona we're wearing and everything else. So that's where I just want to end it. Now.
And just on that, sorry to interrupt, like the opening line was something like, you cold calling a stranger. And it was something like, "Hey, Sinjin, I'm wondering if you can help me. I've just cold called you." So I said right at the start, that's in breach of self-interest. Why would a busy person want to help a stranger who's just interrupted them? Like already, that's triggering resistance. It's in breach of self-interest.
Yeah. That brings the walls up.
That's right.
Knock the walls down.
Yes. Is that your Jeremy impression?
I don't know.
That was quite Jeremy-ish.
He's got a much better haircut than me. He's got great hair. So what I would say, last thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
You've been super good. We might have to get you back on at some point. Is you've been terrific. If you had one piece of advice, I ask all my guests this. One of my best questions, not one of my best, you'll be a judge of that because you've got me, is if you had one piece of advice that you'd leave your listeners with, maybe you've repeated it, but maybe it needs to be reinforced. What's the best piece of advice you could give a salesperson if you only had one piece of advice you could give them?
I have to repeat what I've said on this call today. Self-interest is undefeated. Always appeal to their self-interest. Now, that doesn't mean, there's a caveat there. By appealing to the other person's self-interest, it doesn't mean that you throw out your self-interest as well. That's the art part, where you're able to appeal to theirs whilst being congruent with yours.
There's the nuance, because I think it's really important. In order to get people to respect you, you need to respect yourself.
Well, you'll become a free consultant and do whatever they ask for without asking for anything in return. Like that ultimately won't appeal to your self-interest, which ultimately means you'll get fired because you make no sales, or you hate the work you do, or you hate feeling like a doormat. AKA your self-interest doesn't mean appeal to.
100%. I think there's a difference between subservience and service.
100%. 100%. Subservience is acquiescing with whatever they ask for, no matter what. Service is going to a higher level, which is, doing what is needed, is appropriate, and, that might not be what they specifically asked for.
100%. I think constructive candidness is very important. It's a really important currency. Right, my friend. It's also getting late for you.
No worries.
What I want to say is, where do people get hold of you? You're now on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We'll provide the link.
Thank you.
You've got a podcast with you and James.
Yeah,
Lawrence,
brand new. Yeah, we're only 2 episodes. We're only 2 episodes in, so we're brand new. It's unscripted.
I recommend, if you like listening to Michael, you enjoy the conversations that he's having with James. I think they're very good. Where else can they find you? Is there anything else we need to hook you up with?
Look, I presume you'll put notes in the show notes, so you'll find me on there. Look, I post every day on Facebook. I've just started posting on LinkedIn as well. It's the same content, and I'm about to launch a YouTube channel. There'll be a bit of video content in there as well, and the podcast is there too. So look in the show notes, and you'll find me.
Very good, Michael. You are a very decent fella. I'm so glad we managed to connect and get you on the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I appreciate all the compliments. You're very good at giving compliments.
Very generous, very grateful. Well, they're genuine, because you wouldn't be on the show if you weren't the guy you are.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thanks for your generosity. Thank you for your time. We're going to keep in touch. I could have gone on forever in this conversation. I feel terrible that we have to cut it short, but I think the listeners got a hell of a lot. So we really, really appreciate it.
Anytime. I enjoyed getting to meet you, and you asked some great questions. So thank you. And anytime, if you need me again, just let me know.
Awesome, mate. Well done. You look after yourself. Go
Good man. Thanks, Engine. Pleasure.